Hey guys, welcome back to the UNCOMMODiFY podcast and to another Uncork conversation, my favorite kind of conversations. Today, my guest is Erin Sakopoulos. Erin, thanks for joining me on the show.
Absolutely. So happy to be here.
This is going to be a lot of fun. Now, today, Erin and I are going to be chatting about some very interesting topics. We're going to be chatting about intuition and energy in business and leadership. And this is going to be both, I believe, a provocative and inspiring conversation. Let me tell you a little bit, first of all, how I met Erin, and then I'll tell her a little bit about her background. So Erin is the wife of one of the gentlemen that I work with at one of the companies that I consult for. And I had the pleasure of meeting Erin one time. We went out for dinner together as a group of people, and Erin came. And we had this amazingly interesting conversation, as a lot of my conversations do, because I like to ask a lot of questions. So I asked a lot of questions, probably far too many questions than Erin really wanted to answer that night. But through that, I became very intrigued in what Erin does and set up a session with Erin to help me with some physical things, challenges I've been dealing with. And I just had my first session recently, and I was like, okay, Erin, would you please come on my podcast? And Erin said, yes, I'd love to. That's what you said, didn't you,
Yes, I
Erin?
did.
And it's excellent. So quick background. So Erin is a certified gemstone energy medicine practitioner, and she'll explain a little bit about what this means. She's an advanced intuitive, which I'm not quite sure what that is, but we're going to find out, and a licensed massage therapist. Now that one I can get. I'm good with that one. Now in private practice, Erin combines all these three specialties into unique energy and bodywork sessions for her clients, like she did with me. She also mentors and speaks on developing intuition, utilizing gemstone energy, and holds regular gemstone meditations. And she'll tell you later, but if you want to find her, she'll tell you how to do it later. She is all over the Instagram, let me put it that way. And anything you want to learn about meditation and gems, it's all on that Instagram channel. So you're going to want to subscribe and listen and follow along with that journey. But as every great conversation for me, it usually starts with a drink, sometimes wine, sometimes a whiskey. But today, it's not wine or whiskey, it's water, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It is. Cheers to you. I have cold water. I think you have
I
warm
do.
water.
I've got hot water at 11.
Excellent, excellent. See, I gotta have guests that encourage me to drink water on every once in a while, because most of my guests encourage me to drink probably things I shouldn't. So, anyways, let's kick this off and
Alcohol
have some
would
fun with it.
disrupt your intuition anyway.
No, I know, but too much alcohol can interrupt your intuition and your logic thinking. It can interrupt lots of different things, and that's a different story, different podcast. We won't get into that tonight. So, let's start with this basic question to explore this subject. When you use the word intuition, what does that mean to you, and what should it mean to us?
So intuition is the perception of non-physical information, meaning that you are picking up on data, essentially, that is not what you're picking up with your physical waking eyes or ears or taste or smell.
Okay, so it's data or data
Yeah.
that's somehow around us?
Exactly. So in energy
Okay.
work, there's the belief that everything is frequency, everything is vibration, everything has light and sound. And therefore, because the language of the intuition is energy, it is able to pick up on all that frequency that is extremely rich in information.
That's interesting. Now, when you describe that, I mean, I get the sense that it's almost, I suppose, like any kind of television signal or radio signal, or I guess Wi-Fi signal. At the end of the day, all those signals are in my studio right now. You're in your studio, your home where you are. And if I had the right antenna, if I had a TV receiver or some receiver, I'd be only able to pick up and sense what was already around me,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
suppose. Is it exactly the same thing we're talking about?
I kind of look at it that way. I mean, you can look at yourself as a extremely sensitive, fine filament.
Interesting. You know what? I'm not usually a sensitive fine filament, so maybe I will learn to be more intuitive as I engage with you a little bit, because this is a very fascinating subject for me. And again, if you're listening in, really important. I think you're listening in for a reason. I know you're listening in for a reason. And so if you stay with us long enough, I'm sure you'll find the reason that you're going to give us some of your time today and listen in. Okay, so intuition is this picking up this data that isn't physical. It's around us somehow. It's in this field of energy that exists around us. It's figuring out how to touch it and taste it, even though you can't, in the physical realm. So when that happens, what is that? How does that connect then to business and leadership? How does one use intuition and energy? How can they become great assets in business and in leadership and in our lives?
Well, I think it can become really valuable in ease and efficiency and expansion. So when you're able to heighten your awareness and get this kind of information from yourself and others and the world around you, I feel like it helps with alignment of things. Again, if we go back to the idea that energy is essentially light and sound vibration, you can think of all the frequencies that come together kind of like a symphony. And when you're picking up on that, it becomes a little bit easier, especially if it is your intent. It becomes easier to pick out, well, what is resonant and what is discordant? What is singing off key from the chorus, so to speak? And that makes that process of decision making, I think, a lot easier.
Interesting. So there's some intentionality inside of this intuitiveness. So let me ask you, is being intuitive or being an intuitive, is it a gift?
Absolutely
Is it
not.
okay?
No.
No,
It
not
is
good.
innate in all of us.
Oh, interesting.
It's just
Okay.
learning how to tap into it. It's learning your unique intuitive language and practicing it. That's it.
Interesting. So it's not a gift that only special people
No.
have. It's innate in all of us. It's going to be like the podcast brought to you by eyes. So intuitive, intent, innate.
Yes.
We've got three eyes already lining up. I love it when we get that together. As a teacher trainer, I love it when there's a lot of the same letters. So this is an interesting way of looking at it. But it's innate. It's not a gift, which is interesting because that's not what I would believe about this. I would think that some people got it and some people don't, but your experience and training says that's just not true. People need to understand it and they need to train it and they need to release it and be instructed in it. Oh, another eye. They need to be instructed in it, basically, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that, some people might be naturally more inclined in intuition than others, but that doesn't mean that some people have it and they don't.
Okay, so if you were working with me and you were helping me discover my innate sense of intuition, what is there a process that you would use, or for the American audience, a process? I'm not sure if it's process or process. Is there a process that you would take me through to help me begin to understand, experience it, and figure out how to do that more regularly?
There are probably a million and one ways that you can tap into your intuition, grow it, practice it, learn it. One of the best ways, and maybe one of the faster ways that I can suggest, is meditation. Meditation
Okay.
takes you into that space of getting into your body, getting into your energy, and that is the space in which you can truly access that information and start trying to filter out the filters of your mind. Because one thing that I definitely have a challenge with, especially when I do Intuitive Tuesdays on social media, on Instagram and TikTok. And one thing that I see that is people really confuse their minds and their intuition. So
Okay.
meditation is a good way to get out of the mind space and get into the intuitive space. Also, receiving energy work is another great way to do it. But again, lots of other things, journaling,
Okay.
art, the list could go on and on.
Interesting. So art,
Yeah.
journaling,
Yeah.
meditation. Now, you also said gemstone work. So can you explain a little bit for myself, which I don't know a lot about this, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners don't. Although my niece Jen is going to love this. If
Yeah.
my niece Jen listens to this, it's because she's been into this idea for a long time. I'm going to be really honest with you. Before I met you, I had a little bit of a sort of seems a little bit like voodoo and witchcraft idea around this, to be very frank. But after meeting you and talking to you, I was like, Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And that lady is super smart.
Thank you.
I should explore this, but for a long time I was like, I don't know, that just seems a little bit weird to me. So how if and by the way, is that a natural reaction for a lot of people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was mine too.
That was yours in the beginning.
Yes, in the very beginning, I remember hearing about the whole idea. So actually, when I was a kid, like I wanted to go into jewelry design, and I took a really left turn and went into television. But I always had a love of stones and gemstones and jewelry. And just in passing in my early 20s, I heard about the possibility of using stones for healing and energy work. And at that time, I was doing yoga, so I was kind of introduced to the idea. And that was kind of like, what? Are you sure? So then I started doing a lot of research that night, to which I thought a lot of it just sounded completely hokey and hippie crap, for lack of a better word. But then I came across an organization that I got my training through in gemstone energy medicine called Gemisphere. They're based out of Portland, Oregon. And they had a ton of really specific, detailed information on the stones that really piqued my interest. So I got a book from them. I got my first amethyst and bloodstone necklace from them. And I was like, let's just see what happens. And now I'm here
Interesting.
as a gemstone energy
That's
medicine practitioner.
that's fascinating. Now, so can you explain to me a little bit about like this idea of the gemstones and the principles within them? Do they have properties that attract certain things? Do they have specific energies attached to them? Like how does this all work?
Yeah, so if we go back to the idea of like also intuition connecting into energy and energy being light and sound vibration, it's believed that stones emit quite a bit of light and sound vibration. And we know that scientifically, that's why we know that they're really good conductors of electricity, and that's why they've been used in technologies and things for a long, long time. It just then becomes translating as using that kind of vibrational tool on the human energy field. And yes, it is believed based on each stone and its chemical makeup, there are certain properties associated with them.
Interesting. So in regular sort of everyday life, I'm out working with my clients, let's say. If I was to be able to tap into or find my place myself in that place of intuition, that would help me feel things, sort of braille things in the world, maybe different than just what I see from what I can understand. But how would I incorporate the idea of this energy or energy work in working with other people in my day to day life, not in a clinical environment, but actually in my day to day life?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, So I kind of pose it as like I'm also a business owner too, along with this. So I know the struggles and I know using intuition in a business setting. And one of the ways that I was kind of talking about how it can be a great asset in ease and efficiency and expansion. I mean, imagine getting communications from people, receiving an email from someone and not really completely understanding them or knowing their motives behind something. Taking that moment to ask your intuition, ask the clear question, what is the energy behind these words so I can appropriately answer? It's taking a moment before you walk into a meeting that you're about to run and say, what do I need to know about the energy of this group before I speak? Or it's getting to work every morning and closing your eyes and taking a mindful moment and saying, what is needed of me from my team? What is needed of me from my team today? So those are like little small practical ways that you can start using and accessing information and being open to the information that you receive back. Now, the information that you receive back may not be in the way that you might expect it. And it's certainly not going to come in the, well, you actually need to address A, B, and C, D. That's not how intuition works. It does come through as conscious thought at times, but it also comes through in images and feelings and body sensations. And as you tap into it more, part of your job is to learn your intuitive language and how it
Yeah,
speaks
okay,
to you.
that's interesting. So you said one of the challenges here is that just separating sort of this intuition from your natural mind,
Yeah.
just your mind thoughts. Is that sounds like that's got to be part of the learning process. That you have to learn as you go, because
Yes.
it sounds like they might be similar, I suppose, unless you're seeing, I suppose, a picture like you said or something, which may be a bit different. But if you're hearing a thought in your mind, separating out whether it's just your good thought or bad thought, or it's really an intuitive sensing, that is where the art seems to be for me.
Exactly. So, like when I was studying intuition with Tina Zion, who's a world renowned medical intuitive, she said, do not practice on your family and friends. Do not. Because you have already built up preconceived notions of them in your mind and in your emotions. And intuition
Hmm.
has to, a lot of the time, go through the filters of the mind and the emotions before it comes as that clear conscious thought. So when you're first practicing, it's like take that obstacle out of your way and start with a blank slate. I was talking about the Intuitive Tuesday exercises that I've done, and I've noticed one in particular stood out that I did more recently was I was exploring picking up on lie energy or untruth, and I was kind of discovering that within myself and doing little practices. And what I started to notice, and again, this is what it's about noticing how you're receiving the information. When I practiced with it, I started to notice that I would receive like a pinching in my throat when I would come across a lie vibration. And I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. So then I posed this exercise to my TikTok and Instagram following by I said a did I say a true statement or a false statement? I think I said a false statement. So I put out a quick video of me saying like a really simple false statement, like I walked my dog today or something like that when I didn't. And then I had a friend, another intuitive, say another short statement that was a true statement. And I asked people to intuit who was telling the lie and who was telling the truth. And right there in the answers was telling me how people were using their mind and not their intuition. People would say, well, I thought she was lying because she was smiling too much. I thought you were lying because why would you give someone else that you don't know the task of the false statement? You would probably give that to yourself. That's all your mind. Those are all preconceived
Right.
notions that you have
Yep.
in your head about yourself, others, and the world around you that you're operating from. That's not looking behind for the unseen, for the energy that's behind it. So you're not looking
Yeah.
for
No, that.
physical cues and tone of
Yep.
voice and cadence and what you think someone would do based on a mental
Yeah.
thing.
So you're not employing. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there are practitioners who read body language and figure out if people are lying or not, and look at their muscles in their neck and
Yeah.
all that. We're not talking about
No.
that. We're talking about feeling something from that energy perspective or that perception, which goes deeper than the natural. And as you're saying, we could be clouded by our biases and these things that's what we have to dial down. And I'm assuming that meditation, getting in that meditative space, probably begins to help with some of that for you,
Exactly. Yeah.
where we can get into another space in our own mind. So how long? Like if I wanted to start doing that, say on a regular basis, if I was a business owner or leader or just a mom or dad, I don't know, and I want to get in that space in the morning, how long does one need to meditate to get into a space that would be helpful to them? Is this taking me a half hour or 2 hours, or can I get into a meditative space rather quickly?
You can do it in 5 to 10 minutes if you wanted. And if you
Wow.
wanted to, you could do 20 minutes to an hour if you really felt like it. But um,
Okay.
no, it does not take long at all. Just takes
Okay.
consistency.
Consistency and learning how to do it and find that space.
Mm-hmm.
So again, listen, if you're listening in, you might want to do some more research. You might want to find Erin online, and she'll explain where she can do that later. You might want to find her online and follow her, and just start to play around with this idea a little bit, because I know from the session that I had with Erin, it was powerful. I will tell you that, and I had some, I believe, intuitive. I'm going to call it revelation. I don't know what to call it, to be honest. Intuitive thoughts. You had some intuitive thoughts that led to some very fascinating conversation, because I was sort of like, okay, hold on here. How would you know that? And that was a little weird. That was actually a little bit like, okay, well, somebody's reading my mail. Okay, somebody's been reading my mail from 20 years ago. Not sure how that happened. It was very powerful. And it wasn't, I'll be honest, it wasn't like creepy powerful. It wasn't like disturbing. It was just like sort of that being a little bit in awe, like, okay, how did that just happen? And then the conversation that you and I had, and I also will just say I really appreciated the care and concern and the way that you led that experience, because that can be a very fairly vulnerable experience
Yeah.
when someone you don't know is asking a question or saying something and you're like, okay, that's just weird. That's a pretty vulnerable place, and obviously that's, I suppose, another thing we have to be careful of if we're going to move into this space in our everyday lives with our teams or with people that we know. We need to be really careful about what we do with that sensing. That's got to be a big part of this.
Absolutely. In my training with Tina Zion, is definitely something she harped on. Is also something that's been very big in my practice is ethics. You don't go around trying to scan your intuition into other people without their permission. I kind of liken it to people that, yes, when you go up to people, you may get initial kind of hits that are more passive intuition, but active intuition, actively going in to someone's energy field, can be extremely invasive. I say it's like meeting someone at a party. If you go to shake their hand, you might get a smell of their cologne or their perfume. That's just on the peripheral of their field. It would be very rude if you bent in to smell their neck to see what they smelled like.
Yeah,
That would be weird.
that'd be a little awkward. That'd be weird and awkward. That's for sure.
So
That
intuition's
would
the
be weird.
same.
Okay, so does everybody? So going back to this energy idea, everybody has an energy field. We're obviously, I mean, we all know this from science. We are a ball of energy, of light, of fluid, almost like a battery. I mean, we've got a lot of fluid, and that creates this electrochemical reaction in our body. So, are you suggesting that research shows and your understanding shows that let's say my energy radiates beyond my physical person?
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
what you're explaining?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And does some people's energy reach out much further than others, or are they all typically are all of our energy fields or forces, or I'm not sure what I call it, are they all like pretty much the same, or are they all can they be really vastly different?
I feel like everybody has their individual imprints and or almost fingerprint of their energy field, but based on the work that I've done and all the people that I've done energy work on, I'd say the totality of the energy field is maybe around 10 feet, I guess.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So this is going to lead me to do. Obviously, we have another session coming up, which I'm looking forward to. But in addition, I'm going to be doing a little bit more research on this, and then I'm going to go and apologize to my niece Jen, because I really thought she was a little bit into quackery for a long time. So now I'm going to have to fess up and apologize to her and say, hey, you know that gem stuff? I'm into it. It's awesome.
I do get it.
It'll be
There
so
is a
fascinating.
lot of some weirdness out there. Some
Yeah.
things that are a little bit too out there, and there are practitioners that take things too far and are unethical. So I do tell people that you do need to be discerning when you start going down this road.
Fair enough. So let me ask you: when we were emailing back and forth about doing this episode together, you used a specific phrase or a term in one of your emails, and I'd like you to unpack it a bit. You used this term, and you talked about people can get into this place where they're thinking to death. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting phrase. So, can you help me understand what did you mean by that, and how can I avoid thinking myself to death? Because that doesn't sound like a good thing.
So with energy, with I think the beauty in intuition is that you do get to step out of your mind space for a little while. And going back to what I was talking about those assets in business with intuition is that expansion. So intuition, I feel, allows you to get out of your own way a little bit and step
Yeah,
into a space of imagination, inspiration, epiphany, ingenuity. Because when we get too far into the analytical mind and it's overly meticulous and planning, it can really be a hindrance. Um, Example for me is, during the pandemic, we were doing puzzles, like everybody was doing puzzles. And I sat down and once I get doing a puzzle, I am really like, I'm going to finish this. And there came a point where I was getting really frustrated. I was not getting any pieces in. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take every single one from this pile. And eventually I will get through this pile and I will get pieces. And I was not going as quickly as I wanted to get frustrated. Walked away for 2 hours, came back, boom, got 5 pieces in automatically without thinking. There's no logic there. I just walked away and I gave myself space. So I view intuition as the same thing. When you're able to get out of the monotony and processing of the physical world for a little while, and you're able to just sit in that space of the non-physical, it's like the path of least resistance. It is a place where things can seemingly come out of nowhere. So, I mean, if you have an idea coming up for a project, or you're trying to get past a challenge or something, you can sit there and you can think it to death and you can research it to death. Or you could take space, which is equally as productive. I know that's hard to imagine, but it really is equally as productive. And come out with some inspiration or epiphany.
Interesting. That's a powerful word, by the way. I mean, the history of that word is very, very fascinating. But epiphany is a really powerful word. And as you were saying what you were just saying, I was thinking, I suppose I do that a lot. I think things to death. When I'm hearing you challenge me, and maybe those of you listening, maybe you're hearing the same challenge. You're suggesting that I ought to, I could use my intuition to bring it to life instead of thinking it to death.
Yeah.
And I will say at times that I do think that sometimes I feel like I describe it, a guy that I know who I've coached a long time and done a lot of training with over the years. He once said to me that he likened what I did when I spoke to a crowd of people and sort of how I got in the moment in speaking. He talked about how he said he saw me like taking things out of the ethos. Was his words. He'd say, it's like you take an idea out of the ethos and all of a sudden it just gets life. And I said, yeah, I guess that's sort of what I do. And I from what you're telling me, that's sort of what we're talking about. It's like there's all this stuff around us, going back, I guess, to the radio
There's
waves
all this
or the
information.
TV signals. And it's basically connecting yourself to it and grabbing onto it and pulling it through that veil of that which is not seen into somehow what is seen and perceived is basically what I think you're telling me.
Yes, it is.
This is really interesting. So yeah, that is very, very, very fascinating to me. So let me ask you. So this energy work does feel at times a little bit on the fringe for people, and maybe it feels a little bit like, I guess some people get their antenna up about sort of the new age, the sort of world and all that, and they can get lost in that. But so for those who have, let's say, a bit of a concern, they're like, I'm not sure. Maybe they're like me with my niece Jen. They're not sure and they don't know what to do with this. What would be your first best advice to say, look, if you want to begin to explore this idea or this world, here's a good starting place. What would your best advice be to them?
Start with mindfulness. Again, start with that meditation. Start with learning grounding. Which is essentially just being present in the current moment, feeling your body, feeling into your energy. And then again, letting yourself play, letting yourself have that space to have that ingenuity and that epiphany, like we were talking about. One thing that when I was training for intuition was always said was, intuition is always going to feel like imagination. It's always going to feel like you're making it up. And that's because it rides the same kind of waves. So being able to give yourself permission to play in your imagination in order to get to your intuition is totally okay too.
Interesting. We never talked about this at all in any of the conversations that we've had before, but I'm just wondering now as we're talking. So, how do dreams play into this, or don't they? Like, because dreams are obviously a whole nother space in your mind and in your body and your head. And is there a connectivity to the dream world in this in any way, or are these totally disconnected ideas?
I believe there is, and I believe so based on my experience with working with clients. And again, I would say that it's one of those ways that everybody is an individual, and it's actually was recently brought forward to me with another client that the information specifically came through like, hey, I think it would be good for you in particular to do some work in a dream state that seems to work for you as an individual. Doesn't mean it necessarily works for everybody. But yeah, you can utilize a dream state and you can try it. The big thing is trying and see what works. So if you wanted to do maybe a little bit of meditation in the evening, write down a question for yourself in your journal, whether it's personal or professional, and then let that go. Let that go and intend for you to work it out in your dream state and see if you get anything in the morning or journal in the morning as soon as you wake up.
Interesting, interesting. And now that you're talking about that, I think part of this is just becoming more aware, right?
Yeah.
Like being in that mindful place, being in that meditative place, which doesn't mean you're just sitting there necessarily, sort of, with your fingers in the air doing one of these,
Yeah, exactly.
sort of waiting for it to happen. But being mindful in the moment, as you said, before you walk into a meeting, before you answer an email, before as you receive something, asking yourself a deeper question, trying to feel something before you just react to it.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a really great starting point for everybody. And again, if you're a leader in business, I think that's a great starting point. If this is about if it's something you can apply in your family or the community agencies you work in, or your work, or you're an employee, whatever. I think it all starts with that stepping back and being more mindful about what's behind what is what is in being on the surface, what's underneath it.
Exactly.
I suppose in some ways it's sort of a little bit like an iceberg. I mean, you've got this thing we see, which we think is more real, but it sounds like what is unseen is probably more weighty and significant than what we actually see on any given day.
Yeah. I think we come into this world being able to perceive so much more of this information. And in order to go through our everyday life, the blinders get put on. So this is essentially actively taking a step to undo the blinders a little bit and access as much information as you can ethically from
Yep.
those around you and the world around you and yourself.
Interesting. Well, and it reminds me a lot about in the initial podcast that I did starting this journey. I mean, I talk about in episode 1, which is entitled, I'm a unique Homo sapien, not a homogeneous human. And the whole concept behind that podcast for me was we're born in utter uniqueness.
Yes.
We're born, although we're 99.9% the same, in that 0.1%, there's a vast uniqueness that we all have. We learn to conform. We're brought up to conform into these boxes so we can be accepted and acceptable and all of these things. My whole idea around this podcast has been around this idea of going back and exploring the uniqueness which we were born. Our birthright, effectively, was to be unique in nature, to be at a unique expression, and yet, unfortunately, there's just such pressure to conform, and I think it's rather evil pressure. And if I think of it that way, and then I think about what you just said, not only are we born with that vast uniqueness, we're born with much more intuitive sense of the world around us, and then somehow we get closed. It gets closed off and closed in, and what we're really doing, in some ways, is rediscovering that through the things you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. This is, and for Erin, first of all, really love this conversation. Again, if you're listening in, I don't pre-plan my conversations, and you probably know that from now if you listen enough, because they just sort of dance everywhere. And for me, the discovery in the conversation and feeling it out in the moment is always the most wonderful thing. And even as we talk tonight, I'm having some very interesting sort of sense of why this is important to me as a person right now, why I believe it might be important to my listeners, but frankly, I'm not that interested in my listeners. I'm more interested in me. This is interesting for me right now because it's helping me understand a little bit about what I want to do in being more intuitive about the world that I live in and the people I work with.
Yeah.
because this will be a gift to them as well as I'm able to sort of shed some of those things and get into a different place. I can be more helpful to myself, and ultimately, I believe I could be more helpful to them along the way. So this is a very, very powerful and fascinating conversation. So listen, if somebody wanted to find you and chat with you and explore some of these ideas more with you, how would they find you? What's the best way to find you?
So my website is Turn a New Leaf LLC. You can also look me up on social media. I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. They are both Turn a New Leaf Intuitive. And then also we were talking about how you can start taking these steps with meditation. And I just found Insight Timer. It's a free meditation app. I'm also on Insight Timer and provide free guided gemstone meditations on that app, and I think it's a great thing to check out, especially if you're looking
Excellent.
to
What's it called again? Give me that one more time.
Insight Timer.
Insight Timer, and is it available in the App Store, like Apple
Yeah.
App Store and other places?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm gonna go get
It's
that. And by the way, you know what I found out today? Do you know that you're on Spotify?
Yes, I am on Spotify.
Did you know you're on Spotify? I didn't know you were on
I don't know if I'm going
Spotify.
to
I
be on
found
there
you on.
much longer because I think I'm just going to stick with Insight Timer.
Well, I found you on Spotify today, and I was like, oh look, there's Erin on Spotify. There's Erin. Erin is everywhere, which is pretty awesome. So okay, so Insight Timer, you got to get that app. You can find Erin on there. You can go to her website. You can find her on Instagram. Lots of places to find her. So listen, as we wrap up this conversation, which by the way is, although intuition is not a gift, this conversation is a gift. It's a gift to me, and it's a gift to the people that are listening. So I appreciate you giving us this gift tonight. But I want to take you now into my world. So my world is this world of uncommodification, of standing up and standing out for all the right reasons, breaking the evil spell of sameness. That to me, shaking off the coma of commodification, that's my world. So let me bring you into my world for a second and ask you this question. When you're not being a dime a dozen kind of person, when you're uncommodifying yourself, when you're standing up and standing out for all the right reasons, what are you doing when you're in a room that only you can bring, only Erin can bring to that place? What is it that you do that is the most uncommodifying expression of yourself?
I think what's really defined me, especially in my work, is diligently being an impeccable, non-judgmental observer. By doing that, I haven't taken any information or wisdom that I've learned from teachers or books or speakers. I've never taken anything at face value and just automatically adopted or believed it. I consider it, I find it interesting, but I've always needed to have my own experiences with it. And my way of having an experience is observing energy and observing intuition through my clients, and being in that non-judgmental, impeccable observer space has allowed me to learn a tremendous amount about how intuition, how energy works, and I'm able to speak on it with confidence with people. And I feel like people tell me all the time, you talk about gem energy in a way I've never heard other people talk about it. You speak on intuition unlike other people. And I think it's just because I observe and I take in what I see. And I think that's great for other people to adopt. Be an observer.
Absolutely. And again, that's great. So you're uncommodifying yourself. I mean, I love the word when you're impeccably a non-judgmental. I mean, that is a powerful statement. And again, if you're listening, that may be a key for you to uncommodify your world, because unfortunately, judgmental, critical people are a dime a dozen. You can find them around every corner, and there's the majority of people in a room often are going to have that disposition. If you want to uncommodify yourself, stand in the place of non-judgment, of creative curiosity, of openness and expansion to consider at least certain ideas, and then I like this sort of play and experiment, and then figure it out. That's a very, very powerful statement and well articulated for sure. So listen, Erin, I'm going to give you an opportunity just to challenge my listeners one last time. If you could only say one thing to them as a result of this conversation that you would want to leave and sort of put an exclamation mark in their mind on, what's the one thing that you would want them to be encouraged or challenged about?
Use your intuition by asking more questions. Ask. Ask to see the unseen. You'll get a ton more information than you could have ever known.
It's not about answers, it's about questions. That's very good advice. Excellent. Listen, thanks again, guys, for listening into this conversation. If you listened in for a reason. You are with us for a reason. Please explore that. Ask yourself that question. When this episode finishes, ask yourself, why did I listen to that thing? Ask a curious question and explore the answer. And do me a favor, as you do, as you uncork this in your life, you take the cork off it and let it flow into your life. Connect with me on social media or give me an email. Send me an email at tim@theuncommodify.com and let Erin and I know how you're exploring these ideas and then applying them into your world and what benefit is coming for yourself and others as you do. Thanks again for your time. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. Cheers.